Just for today, everything's okay, everything's okay. Never comes again, another day like yesterday. Just for today, everything's okay, everything's okay.
Good morning, everybody. I, for the first time, am sort of low-key thinking that maybe I should outline some points and get some evidence in place before I do this podcast. But I'm not gonna, because generally I start thinking about something and I just discuss it in front of you, and that's what happens. And I'm not pretending that I've checked absolutely every piece of evidence, et cetera, et cetera. You can take it for what it's worth. This is a place where, right, for wanderers, and to explore curiosities. So today I want to start by describing a kind of a relationship. And I'm going to use a stereotype because when people think about abusive, controlling, romantic partners, when I was a kid, the only way people thought about this was if it was the man. And the truth is there are just as many abusive, controlling women in romantic relationships as there are men. But I'm going to use a stereotype and get away with it because I'm a man, I guess. I don't know. So this is a situation. Let's say I'm going to describe something to you. There's two adults. Let's say they're both in the range of 27 to 30. They're in a romantic relationship. They both work. And in this relationship, when the woman comes home, the man low-key will be like, hey, I need to look at your phone. I need to borrow your phone. And then slowly she begins to realize, like, oh, he's not just borrowing it because we don't need to have strong boundaries. He's actually looking through my texts. And she's like, hey, what are you doing? Like, why are you looking through my texts? And let's say instead of being, oh, sorry, yeah, that's probably a boundary issue, whatever, like I've got issues. What if he doubles down and he's like, well, because if you weren't doing something wrong, why would you care? Why do you care if I look at what are you hiding? Right? And then he starts grilling her. Who is this person? Well, it says, his name is Frank and invited you to, like, how come you didn't say that you're having lunch with someone? Well, it's just a coworker. It's a rep from a company and he invited me to have lunch and we had lunch. Like, it's not a romantic interest, so I'm not worried about it. Like, if you'd wanted to know, I could tell you, like, I don't care, right? Not a big deal. And so this guy starts establishing this way of relating to this person. And let's say she's got boundary issues or she's scared and she doesn't know how or what to do about it. And they both bring home some of the money and they share, right? And they help pay the rent, et cetera, et cetera. And so the next move is, he pays the rent, right? He submits the rent. And then 1 month she accidentally bounces the check that she gives to him when he pays the rent. And then he's like, well, you cost me, I need $10 back for the bounce check. She's like, well, I guess that's fair. And then every time after that, sometimes she pays the rent, sometimes he pays the rent, sometimes he's late. And she's like, well, you were late. And he's like, yeah, but I'm the one who's in charge of everything. Like, I have to worry about everything. So you don't get to complain about it. And then he starts telling her, if you're late or something happens and you don't happen to have the money every day that you're late, I'm going to charge you 5% fees. I'm going to charge you interest on the money. Right? And so then this starts going. This continues along with checking her phone. Now it's a policy. It's like, well, if you don't like me sitting here and asking and blah, 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 just give me your phone. Every time you come home from work, give me your phone. I'll look through it and it's fine. Like, what are you hiding? Why do you care? And she's like, okay, let me check your phone. He's like, you don't need to check my phone. I'm the one in control here. I'm the responsible party. Why do you need to check my phone? Right? And then he starts sometimes making surprise visits to her work just to see what she's doing. And when she pays rent every once in a while, if she's not able to pay and he has to front the money or something like this, or if she misses a bill or if she gets a traffic ticket, he charges her interest. And anytime she complains about it, he's like, well, be responsible. Like, this is on you. You're the one who's irresponsible. Like, if you don't want these consequences for your behavior, then grow up. Stop acting like a child. And he talks to her that way. And anytime she protests, he's like, well, stop being childish. Stop being irresponsible. And I won't have to treat you that way. And one day, so this sort of stuff goes on, right? He's checking her phone, kind of checking on her at work. If he sees her talking to a male colleague inside the office, he's like, who is that? Who is that person? Why were you talking to them? What's going on? How do I know you're not cheating on me? Like, how do I know this is on the up and up? I don't think it looked right. I don't think it looked like, what's going on here? And so then he starts grilling her about that person every day. What's your relationship? What did you talk about? Well, why did you have to talk to that person? Well, I don't trust that guy. And so this becomes this thing. And he's charging her interest if she's ever late on anything, or if she gets a traffic ticket or something. He punishes her, right? Takes away her car for a day. And it's like, well, you need to take the bus. And she complains and protests. And he's like, well, grow up. Stop being a child. Like, don't mess with the system. This is on you. And anytime she tries to turn it around, he's like, well, you don't get to ask me. I'm the one in control. I'm the one handling everything, and you're the problem. Right? And he'll get very angry and very defensive. And then let's say one day, he gets a traffic ticket. Say they share the car. And she gets mad and is like, hey, you're full of crap. Like, when I get a traffic ticket, if you forget to pay it or whatever, like, you punish me, you charge me a fee. And he instantly becomes really, really angry. And it's like, who are you to talk to me that way? Like, who do you think you are? I'm the one in charge. I'm the one who runs everything. I'm the one who takes care of everything. You don't get to ask me questions ever. You don't get to, and so she starts trying to film him, to document this, to be like, wow, this is what this person is doing. And he actually becomes violent and grabs the phone out of her hand, smashes it, and knocks her around. And when she protests, she's like, you're violent, you're out of control. He's like, this is what happens. Like, you don't get to, this is on you. Like, you confronted me. You were aggressive with me. You challenged me. And like, if you don't want this kind of stuff happening to you, then don't talk to me this way, right? So he starts doing this. And she's really starting to feel shaken up and scared and like, what the fuck is going on here? And she's starting to talk to friends and they're like, hey, this is unhealthy, et cetera, et cetera. And then let's say something happens with the car, whatever, she's, gets a ticket, or maybe she's late paying the rent or whatever, and he tries to charge her interest. And she's like, she gets really pissed. She's like, you know what? Fuck you. I'm not. You're full of shit. You make mistakes. You do things. Sometimes you're late. Like, you don't get to impose this on me. I'm not paying you interest and paying fees because I made a mistake. Like, you don't own me. And he gets really angry and he beats her up pretty bad. And then he locks her in a closet and just feeds her a couple meals a day. And it's like, look, you're lucky I feed you. You're lucky I feed you. You were defiant. You were violent. You were angry. You were out of control. You were demanding something that you're not entitled to. And this is what happens to people who act like this. This is what happens. Right? And now she's really, really scared. And he finally lets her out. And she's like, look, fine. Like, it was my fault. I'll pay. Like, and all the people around are like, who don't know, but kind of think something's wrong, or like, well, I don't know, like maybe she really pissed off, like, I don't know, maybe she's crazy, like whatever. Okay. So without going into all the details, as you hear this relationship, every therapist and every sane person on the face of the planet knows what's happening here. What's happening is you have a very, very sick human being in the man who's severely traumatized, dysfunctional, paranoid, narcissistic, who is essentially a stalker, right? You see those stalkers who take any information back as like, oh, you want me. Oh, I'm in control. Oh, this is right. This relationship's supposed to happen. Well, you only said no because, you know, you're hurt and you need me to show you that you really do love me and you need to accept my love, right? There's this sickness inside of it, but also there's this control and there's this violence. But there's no reciprocity in the relationship, right? So this is a victim of extreme control and domestic violence. And the abuser, and anybody on the face of the planet who's sane, knows that's a really sick situation. That man is really sick and that woman is in a lot of danger. And that is a very sick relationship. It is never going to work out. It doesn't matter what she says to him. It doesn't matter. Any therapist who works with her knows you have to tell her, look, you have to stop debating this and discussing this. Someone willing to act this way with you is just going to game the way you talk, right? If you talk and you get frustrated, they're immediately going to be like, you're getting aggressive with me, and they're going to turn it on you and they're going to use it as an excuse to attack. Abusers use everything as an excuse to abuse. Users use everything you do as an excuse to use you. If you protest, they use the protestation as proof that you're unstable and you're incapable of managing things and you're not behaving correctly, and then they use it as the reason to abuse you. Right? They use it as the reason to use you. So a good therapist is going to look at the situation and counsel this woman, you have to stop debating, you have to stop discussing, you have to stop talking. And practically speaking, you're going to have to figure out how to get out of there. And a therapist needs to counsel that woman on finding domestic violence resources, on creating a go bag that he can't see or find with her keys, access to the vehicle, a conversation with a friend to tell the friend, hey, I'm going to need a safe place. I need to get away from this person. And when I do, they're going to be violent and they're going to lie about me and they're going to try to make me sound crazy. I need to get away from this because this person's not safe. They're hitting me. They're abusing me. They're using me. They're controlling me. They're breaking into my phone. They're looking at all of my text messages, and any protest that I put up against their control, they use my protest as proof that I'm unstable and that I'm wrong, and then they attack me and they control me more. I need a safe place to go, right? There's no discussion left. By the way, these relationships exist out there. Some not as extreme, but there are those that are that extreme. Okay, any sane person, and especially any therapist, is going to listen to the relationship I described, and they know that that guy is really sick, really controlling, and really abusive. and that there's nothing that can be done. Nothing. Couples therapists who work with couples in domestic violence have a rule. There's no therapy until physical violence stops, period. None. Because while things are at that escalated level, the abuser just games the conversation. Because a conversation is a de-escalation of the interceding with the sickness of the relationship, right? If you're already at physical violence and you're trying to have a conversation, you're essentially bringing a knife to a gunfight. You're bringing diplomacy to a nuclear war where the bombs are already being dropped. A person willing to drop those bombs doesn't give a fuck what you say. In fact, they're just going to game the conversation to get to continue to take what they want to take. Right? So therapists know that, and any sane person listening to me describe that relationship is going to be like, oh man, that's really sick. And yes, those relationships exist. That's really sick. Like, you got to get away from that. That's really, really sick. That guy is ultra controlling and has severe boundary issues, has an intense rage that they want to dump on someone, and they're just going to find a victim and they're going to control them and they're going to abuse them and they're going to hurt them. Right? Severe examples of this are someone who kidnaps someone and then rape them. Like, someone will kidnap a child and then rape them and molest them over 10, 15 years and force them to get pregnant and force them to have the kids, and right, and keep them in a basement or something. Like, these things happen. Well, what's happening? Well, that's a truly, truly sick person who's so sick and so fragile and fucked up that they need to control someone, and they need this domination and they need this power. And they'll keep selling it to the victim as, I'm doing this, either if I'm hurting you, it's because you deserve it and it's because of the way you are, or I'm not hurting you. I'm not hurting you. I'm helping you. See, I even feed you. You like the sex. You like it. I know that you like it. That's why you were moaning. They will reinterpret everything as proof that they are entitled to do what they're doing to you. That's what that relationship is. So anybody listening to this knows that the relationship I described is just fucking sick. Okay. Come to the point. I defy any of you to show me how that relationship is different at all to the relationship between the American public and the American government. How is it different? Like, I'll offer you a few examples, but this has been creeping in my lifetime. Right? I was born in 1967. In my lifetime, this has crept and crept and crept and crept. And every time they institute further control and further domination, it's always because, yeah, but if we didn't, look who you are and how you act. There are all these problems. That's why we have to do it. And if you try to call them on something, it's like, you don't get to do that. You don't get to. You don't get to. You ever seen a person call a police officer on something and be like, no, it's my civil right. It's my civil right. You see these videos. How many times does that police officer go, oh, really? Okay, you're under arrest. Put your hands behind your back. You're being aggressive towards me. You're being aggressive towards me. Your tone of a voice is aggressive. And they will literally escalate and generate intensity and anger, and they'll project it onto the person, and then they'll arrest the person for talking about, you're like, what the fuck are we talking about talking back? Who the fuck are you? It is literally the constitutional law that if someone is not actively attacking a police officer and is not committing a felony in front of the police officer, that they have a right to speak. And they have a right to say, I need your badge number. No, you do not have a right to search my car. No, I do not consent to search. And yet you see, and I'm not blaming police officers. This is all of us. We've created this system. They're participating in a system where they are trained and taught over and over and over and over and over. The population are childlike, irrational, aggressive, and dangerous. And any backtalk, you notice they even use the language that parents use with children. They use the language that teachers use with children. You're being disrespectful and defiant. They have literally built a system in which they believe you must do exactly what they say, even when they're violating your civil rights, or it's defiance. By definition, you're being defiant and aggressive. We've built a system that is that controlling, sick, paranoid, narcissistic, self-entitled system that's like, you don't get to ask us anything. You don't get to call us on anything. Don't you dare call us on anything. If you do, you're being aggressive and violent and we will arrest you. You don't get to debate anything. The only thing we debate is how you made a mistake as a citizen and what it's going to cost you, how we're going to penalize you for making a mistake. Right? So let me give you a couple of examples that just come to mind. I remember how shocked and offended I was when the Tipper Gore years under Bush Jr., when it's like, they took down Howard Stern. They took someone with freedom of speech on the radio who told potty jokes and dirty things. It's like, yeah, nah, sure. No, I'm not going to let my kids listen to it. And they took him down. They went after him and went after him and went after him and went after him and sued him, and fine after fine after fine. And they legally assassinated him so that he could no longer function or operate on the radio waves. And here's the mistake that the population makes that's so stupid. Maybe you're an evangelical, or maybe you're just some person with moral values that like, I don't want that language and I don't want that kind of talk. I don't want it. Great. But if you think it works to allow tyranny and to allow the government to violate your civil rights and your constitutional rights because you happen to agree with them this time, if you think that's safe, you're out of your fucking mind. Because right now we're in the middle of a nuclear war between both parties who are like, I'm going to violate the other side's rights. Right? When the Democrats are in power, they're like, I'm going to violate the other side's rights. And then everybody who voted Democrats like, yeah, good. They're a bunch of fucking assholes. Yeah, you're an idiot. Because when we entitle and these people who are tyrants, they've built a system of tyranny. Maybe an individual congressperson isn't inherently a tyrant, but they've created a system of tyranny in which they've legalized and built in this narcissistic, self-entitled relationship. They built it in. It's built in and legalized. It's legal. If you don't understand that supporting either side, right? So let's say you disagree and you don't want Howard Stern on the airwaves. You don't understand that Howard Stern telling potty jokes and having naked women on his show, you think that's dangerous? Try entitling and supporting a government that is willing to take away your constitutional rights and feels no shame whatsoever. And it's like, if you call me on it, I'm just going to call you aggressive and I'm going to send, law enforcement personnel who are trained to be violent, who are trained to suppress you no matter what your right, that they don't give a fuck. They're trained. They're not bad people. The police are not bad people, but they operate in this system and that's the job they took. And they've been trained. They've been trained to dominate and to control and command the situation, which means anyone who says to them, no, you justify yourself. You justify yourself. A lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them are just going to get really angry and they're going to fucking crack some skulls. And we've signed off on this, right? Howard Stern, the Cheney story that really shocked me back in the same era, where people kind of freaked out because a federal judge who was presiding over a case, I think with Halliburton, at the time was presiding over a Halliburton case. Cheney played golf, went and played golf with him, and people were like, hey, that's not right. Cheney didn't even go, yeah, maybe that wasn't a good blah, blah. You know what he said? He's like, that's how it operates here. Everybody does that. Do you understand the blatant, egregious, we are decades and decades and decades past the point at which the federal government and often local state governments does not give a fuck about their ethical obligation and their moral. They don't give a shit. They are not ashamed. They don't give a fuck. They will look you in the face and go, that's how we do it. What are you going to do about it? And I, being the naive idealist at the time, was like, oh my God, like, oh fuck, like, here we go. No, 24-hour news cycle, poof, done. Right? What happens if you're late on your taxes? Even if it's just an error. The IRS is like, here's the fee for being late. Here's the interest we charged you on. Do you think they give a fuck how fast you get your check? Can you charge them interest? If they screw up, can you charge them a fee and charge them interest? No. The federal government is that abusive boyfriend who's like, I get to check on you. You don't say shit to me. And they've been this way for a long fucking time. They've been this way for a long time. And we haven't said anything. And we haven't done anything. We've gone, well, I think that's the way it works. Well, come on, you know, they're dealing with 340 million Americans. And what is it? They have to have a system in place and blah. Shut up. Shut up. They are way, way more dangerous to you than all of the things that they say, well, if we don't control you, this is what's going to happen. If we don't control you, this is what's going to happen. I lived in a place called Ghost Town when I was in my early 20s. It was very dangerous. Every single weekend, you could walk outside and hear pop, 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 pop. The little kids next door, who we became friends with because we had a yard, they would come over and play, like their gossip and their topic of conversation, and I'm talking about between like 7 and 12, was who got shot and who from the Shoreline Crips had beef with, you know, V13, or sometimes they had a truce, sometimes they didn't, and who got, like, literally, that's what those little kids talked about. That's how dangerous it was. And our house would get broken into and car would be like smashed and, you know, blah, blah, blah. Now, here's the thing. Really think about this, because I know what your mental response is going to be, because I had the same one. They had a couple gang units that would roll through every once in a while and roll up on kids and put them up against the wall and check them out. But the police wouldn't even go in the neighborhood. They didn't have regular policing. Just whatever happened, right? Now, here's the thing again. You can be empathetic and you go, what the fuck do you expect? I mean, that was created by the population and by the environment and by financial pressures and by history of oppression of Black people. Like, we understand, right, the violence in those kind of neighborhoods, what it came from. And you can be empathetic to the police and be like, what the fuck do you think you're going to do about that? What do you expect them to do? But here's what's important. Okay, great. Where's the empathy when you fuck up? Where's the empathy when you fuck up? Where is that same understanding and humanity when some 17-year-old kid gets caught with a joint, and back in the day, they'd charge him as an adult and throw them in prison for 5 to 8 years. But some people still sitting there for nonviolent crime for nothing more than possession. Don't get caught in the bullshit narcissistic argument where it's like, how is it supposed to work? Well, why is it that you get to have that understanding for them, but when it comes to you, there's no play? There's no, well, how is it supposed to work for the population? It's just like, that's your job. You're responsible for that. Just like that abusive boyfriend is constantly riding that woman going, well, you fucked up. Well, you fucked up. You're responsible for your mistakes, whether you did it intentionally or whether it was just acted. You're responsible, and I have to punish you and I have to control you because you're the problem, but he's never the problem. He's never the problem. It's the same relationship, guys. It's the same relationship. They're never the problem. They never screw up. They never make mistakes. You can't call them on it. Look at the whistleblowers in the last 10 years. Again, I was shocked again. There were whistleblowers that were like, hey, American population, your rights are being violated and your privacy is being violated, and the government is literally using technology to spy on you. And with no shame whatsoever, the federal government went after them. What's his name? Still living in Russia, right? Exiled out of the country and will be immediately arrested. And you know what shocked me? You have a bunch of Americans who's like, good, he's a traitor. Are you a fucking idiot? Like, how dumb are you? He's a dude who was like, the federal government is violating your constitutional rights, and I'm going to take the hit. And I'm going to help you by risking my life and my career, and I'm going to be the whistleblower. And you side with the abuser? Like, yeah, well, if you didn't want that to happen to you, hey, man, if you're that twisted, if you don't understand, if you're that confused, there's no conversation left to have. Just like with that man and that woman, right? You get abusive relationships, and let's say the woman made dinner and she burnt dinner and she put burnt dinner down in front of him, and he loses his shit. And he goes after her and he hits her and he locks her in a closet for 24 hours. If you are sick enough to go, well, she shouldn't have burnt the dinner. If you're that sick, or if she breaks out of the closet and goes and tries to get help and goes to a neighbor and is like, I burnt the dinner and my boyfriend beat me, and then he put me in a closet and he locked me, and I had to break down the door and I had to escape. And that neighbor comes and talks to the boyfriend, and the boyfriend's, well, like, look, she broke down the door. She's aggressive towards me, and she broke down the door and escaped. So that's what happens. And the neighbor's like, well, yeah, I guess so. I guess she shouldn't have fucking burnt the dinner, and I guess she shouldn't have broken down the door. If you can justify that claim, there's nothing left to be said to you. Because you're out of your mind. You're out of your mind. The US government violates you over and over and over. They violate your trust, they violate ethics, and they violate morality over and over and over and over. And they make excuses for themselves and they justify it. And they even pass laws to make it legal to do so. And if you sit there and go, well, you know, that's their job, you know, it's, you know, but okay, there's nothing left to be said. Like, there's no possibility of a conversation with you. If you have that depth of sickness in relationship to an abuser, there's nothing left to be said. Right? Let's go even further. How many people are in federal prison for white collar crime? Martha Stewart went to prison for insider trading. And 80 to 90% of the unethical, lying ass motherfuckers in Congress do it all the time. And everybody knows it, and everybody talks about it, and we complain about it, and people go on podcasts and talk about it, and blah, 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 and nobody's going to do anything about it. And they've been doing it for decades, and they know they do it, and they do it to your face, and they don't give a shit what you think about it. They don't fucking care, and they're not going to stop. But they will put Martha Stewart in prison for doing the same thing. You think I'm just anti-government and just a rebel? I'm not. I don't want trouble. I don't like trouble. I'm a super compliant person. I'm just like, go with the flow, super compliant. What do you need? Yeah, I'm going to do that. Oh, if you want this form, I'm going to sign that. But I've been that way my entire life. Like, I don't want the fucking trouble. I don't want to confront or be assertive with this bullshit. But we're not paying attention. We're not paying attention. Every single day, what do people in Congress make? 180,000 a year? Something like that? 250,000? Like, I don't know. It's not tons and tons of money. And most of them are multi-millionaires. And they didn't get to Congress. They didn't have that level of money. Why? Because they sit in on I forget what it's called, but it's like when you have a group and they're managing this and they're managing what are the laws going to be for insurance and whatever. They literally set policy for how things are going to go for companies, and they know when a company's going to tank, and they know when it's going to explode, when they've just handed over a government contract to some company and it's going to become public knowledge in a week, and that stock is going to skyrocket. They know that, and they went and they made their phone call. And they bought the stock and made 300%, 500%, 1,000%. They're doing that all the fucking time. And then they put Martha Stewart in prison for the same fucking thing. What do we not understand about this relationship? What do we not understand about this relationship? They are the abusive, narcissistic, self-entitled people who are never going to hold themselves responsible for their behavior. They are not going to. They're not going to hold themselves responsible for their behavior. They are not. You can complain. What did they do with the whistleblowers? They went after them with a vengeance. All of them. All of them. It's not Democrat. Obama went after them. They are all part of the same system. The system has been built to be narcissistic, tyrannical, and to send you the message over and over. You must justify your presence. You must justify your presence. You must tell us everything about you. You must tell us how many kids you have. You must tell us how much money you make. You must tell us whether you have this kind of ID or that kind of ID. You must tell us when you travel. You must tell us where you travel. You must tell us which countries you go to. You must tell us. And you can justify and go, well, they need to control whether you're bringing in, some parasite from some other country or somebody. Man, you can't control that shit. You can't control COVID. They can't control whether shit comes across the border. That stuff happens anyway. It's just one more reason to go, I get to control, I get to monitor you, and I get to control you. And if you protest it, that's just another reason for me to create more control. And they create all of this. You think the CIA and the American military didn't create all of that Islamic attention on this country? They trained bin Laden, and they used him, and they used the Taliban to fight back in the Cold War against the Russians. They have a term, they call it blowback. They have the term, they know that this happens. It happens over and over and over and over and over. And they create these situations, right? For the American population, they use our name, they use our money, and they go do these things in other places. They took down the democratically elected government of Iran, and then they've spent ever since then telling us what an enemy, what an evil place Iran is. These terrible people. who mean Israel ill and mean us ill and blah, 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 blah. They talk about democracy and freedom. Hey, man, you've fucked with and taken away democracy and freedom multiple times in other countries. And when those countries got pissed and came after us, you convinced us that it's because they're bad people. And then you convinced our 18-year-olds and our 21-year-olds and our 25-year-olds that they're bad people and put guns in their hands and said, go kill those people, go control those people. They're bad people. And so then you get a Richard Reed. And then we have to take our shoes off at the fucking airport for a decade or however long it was. Not that that controls anything or does anything. It doesn't do anything. You didn't save anybody from anything. I know this. Most people know this. We're just participating in someone being controlling, and they keep instituting further control and further control and further control. Always, yeah, but well, if we don't, this happens. It happens anyway. You're more dangerous to us than that is. My fellow citizens have never leveraged the amount of danger and control and sick, immoral relationship with me that you, the American government, has. Never. Never. I've never had. I lived in that dangerous neighborhood. People barbecued and handed me food over the fence. We accidentally broke our window. My next door neighbor was like, hey, I didn't have a car, drove me to the hardware store, helped me get the glass, and I didn't know how to put it in, and then helped me put it in. They're not behaving this way with us. You are. The American government is behaving this way. So I'm telling you to your face right now, you cheat and you lie and you steal and you create laws to justify it. But I know who and what you are. You're narcissistic, you're tyrannical, and it's not just Trump. Don't get it twisted. Gabby, you guys remember who I'm talking about when Hillary Clinton was running. Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard. The DNC, the Democratic Party, literally generated an out and out lie. They generated this narrative that she was in cahoots with Putin and that she was part of a cult and blah, blah, blah. You want to talk about a fucking cult? The Democratic Party is a cult. I mean, they have shat on anybody who wasn't the most powerful, who wasn't down for, and they scream and they talk to the poor and disenfranchised when things are going sideways. And they're like, it's the Republicans and it's the right wing and it's blah, blah, while they're doing the same goddamn thing. You think they're not filling their bank accounts by gaming the stock market? You think they're not insider trading and then putting what's her name in prison for a year? You think they won't put you in prison if you do it? They have set up a system in which it's normal for them to say, I get to peek inside your life and your world. And if you have a problem with it, it's because you're sick and you're violent and we can kill you or we can put you in jail if you do not acquiesce. Submit. You acquiesce. You submit. And they hire people who are idealistic. Police officers are idealistic people. They believe in it. They believe in the system. They're not bad people, but they believe in the system. And they've been trained to believe that we, the population, are the problem. They've been trained to believe that. They've been trained to believe that they're doing the right thing. They get high fives and they get accolades when they go back to the police department if they squashed a situation and took somebody down aggressively. I'll give you an example, right? I'm not better than anybody. When I worked at a veterinarian clinic, sometimes dogs get aggressive or they're scared or, blah, blah, blah. And there were doctors who were down for like, let's step back for a second, talk very quietly, get a, leash around their neck, and, it's a soft rope leash. And then there's a way to get it around their muzzles so that you can hold it and they can't bite and blah, blah. And others were more just like whatever. And I was young. And I remember there was this one younger doctor that I sort of looked up to, just kind of a hip musician dude, working with a small dog that was scared and twitchy and maybe in pain and kept trying to bite. And in my head, I was like, maybe this takes something different. And I took the dog, grabbed it by the side and was like, wham, like set it down on its side and held it. And he was like, good job, the doctor. That's not a fucking good job. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. But you see the move. I'm 21 years old, male. I want to be seen as competent. I want to be seen as handling the situation. Here's an animal that's scared, probably in pain. It's small. There's two enormous animals doing stuff to it, like whatever. And the doctor, right, the person in power, the authority in the situation, needs to get something done so that they can make money and blah, blah. And he has his ego and blah, blah. What's the easiest thing to do? Aggression. So I intimidated the dog into being quiet. But it's fucking bullshit. It's bullshit. Right? So I'm not beating up on police officers or, people who have taken jobs as part of the mechanism. We have all built this and we've all acquiesced and we've all given into it. And we've all justified it. We're codependent with it. I'll give you another mea culpa, right? In January, we just lost our home. And I applied to FEMA and I applied to SBA and I got help from government agencies to take care of my 3-year-old and my 6-year-old. I did. And everyone would probably say, come on, like, yeah, that's what it's for. Come on. Like, what are you talking about, John? But you have to understand that every time we ask the government to solve a community problem, they institute more, like, do you have any idea of the paperwork I had to go through to go, yes, help me? People in the community who helped didn't go, I need to see this, I need to see that, I need to see your bank accounts, I need to see that, I need blah, 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 I need pictures of this, blah, 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 I need a signed affidavit. Like, in the community, we help one another because we're just like, we should help, right? Every time we ask the government to step in and solve our problems, they get sicker and sicker and sicker. They feel more and more entitled. Now, here's the thing, guys. I've been pretty stressed for 6 months. My short-term memory, my memory isn't great because there's a lot of cortisol, lack of sleep, stress. And so when I'm giving you examples, my memory right now isn't what it usually is, where I can just riff through example after example after example after example, right? And so maybe you hear the examples I give, like, the IRS charging interest and fees when you're late, but you can't charge them. And maybe you have some justification in your kid. You're like, I get it, John, but come on, like, what do you expect? They're dealing with 340 million Americans and, you're not. It's just one agency. So, like, what do you expect them to do? Go ahead and call bullshit or have your own opinion about individual things. But what you need to understand is this is an entire system in which there's no reciprocity and you are not allowed to have an opinion about how they do and what they do. And we're not talking about maybe administratively that's the way that has to be. We're talking about egregious violations of the American trust. They're doing things that are illegal, immoral, and unethical, and they're past doing it in private and even trying to hide it. That's what was shocking about Cheney. You know that a federal judge should not be having a social visit with someone connected to the defense or either side. He wasn't even worried about it. He's just like, yeah, that's how all of this works here. If you remember when Trump was on stage, he said something to the effect of, when people were going after him about his taxes and this and that, and he was gaming the system and it's dishonest and blah, blah, blah. He said, yeah, sure, I'll show you my taxes if you make them do it. And he said something to the effect, but I'm not worried about it because they all do it and they're not going to show theirs. We're at this point. We're at this point, right? At the beginning, the boyfriend, when he's checking her messages, might be like, oh yeah, sorry, no, I just sort of, yeah, no, I was just going to use your phone and accidentally looked at it, right? At the beginning, he might obfuscate and sort of make up some bullshit. But if you sign off on that behavior, sooner or later, the person's going to go, yeah, I do it. What are you going to do about it? It's my right. So the federal government is at that point now where they're like, fuck you. What are you going to do? If you have a problem with it, I can jail you. I can go after you, like whistleblowers. They go after the whistleblowers. They don't go in and fix the system. They go after the whistleblowers. They convince you that they did something unpatriotic and that they violated the America. Like, they're lying. They're straight up lying. They're protecting themselves. They're protecting their crimes. They're protecting their unethical behavior. They're protecting their dishonest behavior and going, the only thing that counts is when you're dishonest. And what the American public does isn't even unethical sometimes. It's just that a rule's been made. Tough shit. We'll punish you. We'll take your money. We're going to punish you. We're going to take your money. If the government wants to take over a city square or whatever, blah, 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 you can't give them a ticket. If you park somewhere and you're there to, like, they literally are like, we tell you if you can put a vehicle in a particular place and for how long. And if you violate that, we're going to take your money. Everything in this system is set up to take your money, to take your money, to take your money, to take your money. And they pretend that it's like, well, if we didn't do that, blah, blah, blah. Shut the fuck up. No, at this point, you're just a parasite. You're just taking the money. Take their money. We're going to take their money for this. Well, they were late. We're going to charge them fees. We're going to charge you interest. Well, you did this. There are cases, there are documented cases, right? There are police departments that if they stop you and they seize your stuff, even if you didn't commit a crime, there are places and there are cases where they just keep it. They absorb it. They'll take your car and then they'll sell it and they keep it for their budget. There was a case, I forget what state it was. There was a guy who had decided it was his life's dream to purchase this music studio. So he cashed out a bunch of money and he was driving to do the transaction and he got stopped. And because they were like, whoa, how come you have this much cash? They took it. They never charged him with anything. At the time that I read the story, it was 5 years in and they had not given him the money back and they wouldn't. They wouldn't give the money back. They just took it. That's theft. That's fucking theft. You think because they wear blue suits and they have a badge, it's not? It's fucking theft. In fact, it's even more unethical. It's even sicker. Because they're doing it behind the guise of, well, that shit happens. Again, don't get twisted. Don't start hating on police officers because you're like, yeah, but no. You don't understand. They're just operating in a system in which they've been entitled to do this. and they're operating in a system that probably doesn't pay them enough, and they have a dangerous job, and they're not given support, and they're sent the message over and over and over. You're a good police officer if you establish domination, dominance, and control. They're sent that message over and over and over. Have we not all been trained? Have I not been trained? Have you not been trained? And all those people are like, yeah, well, if you don't want that to happen to you, I guess you should have. Oh, okay. You've been trained. I've been trained. Those police officers have been trained. Yes, they have a greater responsibility because they have a greater power to do violence and to really hurt people. But they are us. They are us. They are not the power structure. They work for the power structure, and they haven't realized that. They haven't realized that yet. Okay, so I gave you the example of insider trading. Super PACs, allowing a political party to take millions, probably hundreds of millions of dollars without ever having to justify where it came from. Okay, here's another good one that just occurred to me. If you deposit 10,000 or more in a bank account, the bank has to report it to the feds. 10,000. In your case, 10,000. Imagine the insanity of a private company, the bank, that makes money off of interacting with you and your money. But the federal government is, by the way, this private company has to report to me if someone deposits more than $10,000. But those politicians can take millions of dollars and they don't have to tell you shit about where it came from. Justify it. Go ahead. Justify it. Go ahead. Try to pretend to yourself that, well, if this or that, and try to pretend that they have not become narcissistic, unethical, immoral. And again, this is happening really severely right now. We're having this conversation right now because Trump, who's extremely narcissistic and a bit unstable, right now as we sit here, I'm in my office in Santa Monica, which is in Los Angeles County. There's American military here, as well as ICE. They just conducted a massive military level raid of MacArthur Park last week, where they just roll up and intimidate and just grab people. They don't even know. They don't give a shit. They don't know. And you can't say, no, I don't have to show you my ID. You can't say that. They don't give a fuck. They'll just grab you and take you. You think this is about illegal immigrants? Do you think this is about illegal immigrants? You think so? You're out of your mind. This is not about illegal immigrants. This is not about terrorism. It's not about whether you're safe at an airport. It's not about protecting you for COVID. The government has been instituting tighter and tighter and tighter controls and domination, and establishing a relationship in which you must be absolutely transparent. If you put more than $10,000 in a bank, you have to explain where that money came from and what you did to earn it. And you have to make sure that they get their piece of it. And they have to make sure that you didn't interact with a drug dealer, or you're not a drug dealer, or you're not sex trafficking, or you're not all these unethical, evil things. But they can take millions of dollars from anybody. It doesn't mean shit. You can't say shit about it. And it's fucking legal. And they don't care. Every single election cycle, it'll come up and there'll be people who are like, wow, we need to vote. Have they changed it? No, they're not going to change it. They're not going to change it. They're just going to say a couple nice things to make you shut the fuck up and go away. They're not going to change it. And someday it's not going to be 10,000. They're going to move it down to 7,000. And this isn't just federal government, right? Here I am in Los Angeles. The fuck up that allowed the fire was going to happen because it was naturally unusual circumstances. But the fuck up that in a place where this happens 4, 5, 6 times a year, that they were when they knew that it was hyper dry, that they knew that the wind was coming, and it's almost a guaranteed. The fact that they were completely unprepared, they didn't have enough water, and it just raged across an entire city and burnt the entire city down. All of the Palisades is burnt down. Okay, they did it. They did that. They did that. They aren't the wind, and they didn't light the match, but they fucking did that. It was total incompetence in a place where these wildfires happen all the time. And the city of Los Angeles, because I have a business here, I don't just get taxed by the feds and the state. I also get taxed by the city of Los Angeles. Every year they're like, I want my piece. I want my piece. I want my piece. Okay, motherfuckers, are you going to replace all the shit in my house that burnt? No, you don't give a shit. There's no recourse for me. You think FEMA or SBA or anything that happened can compensate me for what we lost? That was 2 decades of shit. 2 decades of stuff that we had accumulated to create our family and to support our kids, gone, partially because of your incompetence. I can't call you on it. Nobody's going to do anything about it. And yet, guys, when I contacted the city of LA and said, hey, this and this happened, I lost my location, I've had to relocate to Santa Monica. Do you know what they said about LA tax? Tough shit, asshole. Fucking pay it. Pay it. Pay it now. You know what they did? They gave an extra 2 months to pay it. That's what they did. They gave an extra 2 months to pay it. Tough shit, asshole. Pay it. Don't care. Don't care. Pay it. This isn't just the feds. The entire system is set up to go, if we fuck up, oh well. Do something about it. And they'll pretend like vote it. There's no voting it out. The next person who comes in enters the same system. The system is already tyrannical. It is already unethical. It is already immoral. It is already set up to make them rich and powerful. It is already set up to impose control on you and to tell you that you must absolutely be transparent with them. You must absolutely be transparent with them. And it is set up to be completely opaque to you. You do not have access. You can vote how the fuck ever you want to vote. It doesn't matter. That next person, whether they have good intentions or not, is going into the same system. What happened to Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard? The DNC is a system. They absolutely fucked them. They went after them. I mean, they went after them. Okay, so I don't agree with Bernie Sanders, but I believe he had good intentions. I don't agree with everything Tulsi Gabbard says, but I believe that she has good intentions. It doesn't matter. You know, these people jumped on the Trump train because he at least is just chaotic and out of control and self-serving, and he makes shit happen because he doesn't give a fuck about the rules. And they're like, okay, here's an opportunity, right? RFK, right? Robert Kennedy was like, oh, here's an opportunity. Amen. I know you're a good person and you mean well. And Tulsi Gabbard, I know you're a good person and you get into that system, you think you're doing shit because Trump's the same as them. He just doesn't give a fuck whether you know it or not. And you think that you're going to get to do things because Trump will break things and he will break laws and he'll move things forward, but he's only doing it in his own interest. And the second the interest of the people you're trying to serve counteracts his interest, he is going to put you under the fucking ground. How do you not know that? How do you not know that? Trump does good things for the country sometimes accidentally because he's a narcissist and he's arrogant and egotistical. And when the interests of the country align with his ego, right? He legitimately went in and handled shit in Syria when Other people were not. He did. The Clintons sold us out to China and tariffs and blah, blah, blah a long time ago. And China has been screwing us financially for decades now. Well, that offends Trump because he has an ego. He doesn't give a shit about you, but he has an ego. And that pisses him off because he's a business person, and it pisses him off to think that this deal is happening. So when he becomes president, it becomes personal for him. And so he started pushing back on China and fucking with them, which he should have. But he's not doing it because he gives a shit about you. He's doing it for the same reason he does everything. It's for his ego and his own self-interest. If it aggrandizes him or makes him look like a king or, blah, blah, blah. Right? So these people with good intentions jumped on the Trump train because they're like, oh, here's somebody who actually shakes things up. Yeah, but he's not shaking it up for you. He's not shaking it up for the people. You're going to get your ass kicked the second the interests of the American people counters his interest. Now, again, I'm not a Trump hater. I don't give a shit. He's a sick person for sure. Like what he's doing in Los Angeles now is pure retaliation. He fucking hates, right? Because his ego can't handle the fact that Southern California hates him, or not even Southern California, Los Angeles, because Orange County is conservative. There's lots of conservative people in California. People have no idea that that's true. There's tons of conservative people here. It's just that they consistently lose because there's just enough Democrats and liberals, right? What Trump is doing has nothing to do with other than hatred and retaliation, right? I've been offended by the federal government's being complicit in allowing guns to flow south to the Mexican cartels and allowing drugs to pour up north. I'm a therapist. I've even had heartbreaking situations where I've lost people to fentanyl or, whatever. I've been offended by the open borders, but do you think Trump gives a fuck about the open border? He doesn't give a shit. It was just a talking point that he could jump on, and now he's using it to punish areas that didn't like him and insulted him. It's all about ego. It's all about ego. But what you need to understand, and again, this isn't about Trump, what you need to understand is that the system is the danger, right? Trump's tuning it up and taking advantage of executive power, increasing executive power because it serves him. But as soon as he's out, that doesn't roll back. I mean, since 9/11, the security state is out of control. They didn't roll anything back. We're not under significantly more threat from terrorists now than we were back then, or even before, or 10 years before then. They don't give a shit. Every inch you give them, they're going to take a mile and they're going to lock that in, and they're never going to roll it back. And now we're at the point where large portions of the country are fine with the military entering our sovereign soil and going after people randomly. They say that they're going after, right? But they don't give a shit. It's not about illegal immigration. They're going after people who legally immigrated. Punitively, they're punishing. It's about control. It's about domination. It's about control. And it's not about immigration agents or ICE. Or, again, I'm not against ICE per se or police department, like, blah, blah. It's not about beating them up. You have to start seeing the system itself has been created. There's an energy and a dynamic that has been created and built into the system that is exactly the same as that energy and dynamic I described with the abusive, really sick, domestic, violent boyfriend and that woman. It is the same dynamic. You must be absolutely transparent. Any protestation is a sign that you're unstable, immature, and that you need to be controlled even more. But if you look at me and you want to evaluate me, I'm going to be even more violent. I'm completely opaque. The whole entire system is that. And we have all participated in it. Don't start hating on ICE. Don't start hating on immigration officials. Don't start hating on police departments, blah, blah, blah. We have all participated in letting an energy and a dynamic be created with people who have become very sick. They become parasitic. They become tyrannical. It doesn't even occur to them how sick it is that they would put Martha Stewart in prison for what they do every fucking day. There's no shame. There's no shame in them. And that is the sign of an extreme narcissist, a parasite. It's the sign of a parasite. A parasite has no shame whatsoever. Remember that weird little creature? It's an insect or something that will climb into a fish's mouth and it eats the fish's tongue. And then it sits there in the fish's mouth and pretends to be its tongue so that when the fish eats insects and stuff, it gets fed too. It's a parasite. It integrates itself into the situation. It insinuates itself into the situation where it doesn't have to do any work. It inflicts damage and pain, and it inflicts damage and then pretends that it's serving a function so that it can siphon, right? The American government right now is inflicting extreme damage on the population. It has been, with all of the fear mongering and the control and the messages to the population that we're childish and we're immature and we're out of control and we need to be controlled and we need more restrictions and more laws and we need more security personnel at the airports and you have to take your shoes off and you have to do this, you have to justify that. Now a driver's license isn't enough. You need a real ID, a real ID. It's not enough that they know who you are. You have to go through this process to go, we know absolutely 100% who you are, and we need to keep tabs on that. We need you to be transparent. Hey, guys, I think it's enough for today. But if you do not understand that that's exactly the same relationship, it is a parasitic, abusive, tyrannical relationship. And we've all participated in it, and we've allowed it to be built. And you don't get to target or dox anybody. No doxing anybody, because individuals in the situation, you're participating in it. I'm participating in it. But let's just start by calling it what it is. Let's start with that. No hate, no doxing, no attacking, no demonizing police departments, no demonizing ICE or immigration. But yes, they have bad actors. No demonizing anybody. Let's just start by calling it what it is. The entire system has been set up, has been legalized and established with this energy and dynamic that's tyrannical, extremely narcissistic. It's paranoid. It's totally self-entitled. It is completely opaque. Any offer they make to let you see in is always controlled. And it's just like a little lip service, like, here, sure, you want to know? Yeah, you can read this. It's bullshit. To your face, they violate morality and ethics. To your face. And they don't give a shit, and they're not going to stop it. They're not going to stop super PACs. They're not going to stop insider trading. They're not going to stop controlling. They're not going to stop giving themselves money, voting themselves raises. They're not going to stop, because domestic violence abusers never do. The victims have to stand up for themselves and extricate themselves from the situation. It's the only way out. All right, you guys. That's it for today. Love you guys. See you next time.
Just for today, everything's okay, everything's okay.